Governor Asa Hutchinson. He was very honest in that interview. I mean, I think he's typically a very honest politician, but he was talking about the unpredictability, the wild card factor as it relates to the issue of abortion. What does Roe versus Wade, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, mean in terms of this midterm election? And he said, honestly, I don't know. It's just an unknown. And perhaps we're seeing the impact of that in some races, not all races, but in some races all across the country. We mentioned Arizona. I was mentioning anecdotally the huge lines in Tempe, Arizona, where ASU is. Young voters waiting in long lines to vote. Maybe that compelled them. Maybe that propelled them to vote that particular issue. We'll just have to wait and see with what those exit polls actually tell us in the days following this election, right?
Indeed, and Democrats have been saying that they have been registering more women. That's one of the talking points Democrats have been pointing out that they were counting on tonight, young women especially too. So if those demographics play out, it could maybe explain why we're seeing Democrats still rule.
You know, some of these races are just razor thin right now, especially in the Senate race. Are there laws on the books that would trigger an automatic recount if, say, the margin was to fall within a certain number?
Not in the state of Nevada. Recount has to be requested by the candidate who lost the contest, unless something was contested in court and the judge made an order for us to recount. Those are the only two avenues for a recount in the state of Nevada and Clark County.
Now, John, let's talk about that, what he said, because it is important, especially for the state Senate race.
Yeah, the Nevada Senate race, we expect this to be a very close race. You know, the polls show each candidate at about 47%. So the losing candidate would have certain avenues to go to ask for a recount. And as he mentioned, a judge could also mention it. What's important to note is we learned tonight from the Secretary of State's office is that there's about just short of 6,000 votes that need to be cured. And that means 6,000 people cast ballots that Nevada's like, well, we don't know if this is really you. So you need to come back in. You need to show us your ID so we can confirm that the vote you cast is indeed yours. We've seen this in past elections. It's not unusual. People can be sloppy about signing, or it just doesn't read right to match up with the signature they have on file. So that's something for voters. If they get a notification from the registrar of voters, they're going to want to get in by next Monday to say, hey, that's me, and I want my, and they'll fix it. They'll fix it. But that's an important thing for voters to remember going forward.
So essentially, the registrar, they're making sure and keeping an eye on all those ballots to take a look at the signature and the proper areas of the ballot.
Right. I mean, his job really can't be understated here because, of all the concerns about voter integrity. And it really is to people like Joe Gloria now to reassure people that this is a fair and legitimate election. And that's part of the process is that, he has to hit certain deadlines now to move things forward. And then the Secretary of State also has to sign off on what the various counties have come up with. And they have to confirm their numbers. They have to do a canvassing. So there are a number of things going on, and there's also observers as well to keep an eye on everything. So if you remember in the last election, he had a lot of pressure coming with the election. So I think they've learned some things, and they've implemented some new things going forward, and hopefully people feel better about what they're seeing.
Let's listen to a little bit more of Joe Gloria here. He does talk a little bit more. You guys talked on several different issues. This is on voter integrity. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
I'm sure you're well aware that, around the country, the big issue is, voting integrity. What can you tell voters watching this right now that the system here in Clark County, they should be able to trust it 100%?
Absolutely. We've made great efforts to provide transparency in everything we're doing with the mail ballot processing. We redesigned our entire mail ballot processing area and moved it all into one building. We've had several observers here throughout the course of the mail ballot processing period. Nothing's changed as far as what we've always done. The audits are in place, the statutory requirements for an accuracy certification board. We test the software. We make sure the software is what is certified by the federal and state government. Verify totals and testing. So the status of the equipment and the accuracy of tabulation is intact. The integrity of the process is being held up here in Clark County.
To unmute ourselves here. We are live here, live streaming for the first time doing this at Fox 5. Let's talk about now voter integrity and what Joe is saying there.
Basically, he is saying that we have systems in place. We have software that meets this, not only the state standards, but the federal government standards of how these machines have to operate. There's been a lot of allegations, not necessarily in Nevada, but in other parts of the country, that the machines were corrupted. He's saying that's just not possible because we have to meet certain standards, and we have observers there as well. So what he's doing is he's trying to reassure voters that, look, we're on top of it. We don't have a horse in the race on this one. We just want a free and fair election. And he's been the face, really, of Clark County elections for almost as long as I've been here. Oh. And he's been in the election business since, I guess, for 30 years. So this guy's been in the business, and he brings a competency to his job.
Seen every angle of the election take place and setting it all up as well. One more there is that he talked about, and that is the razor-thin margins in Nevada. Let's play that sound now. Take a look.
If there is a recount in any of these bigger races, how long does that usually take?
Well, we're statutorily required to finish in 5 days, and we've never not met a statutory guideline, so we definitely finish on time.
So these races, one way or another, should be known by, say, a week from Saturday?
You have to keep in mind the statutory deadlines. Okay. So Saturday after the election, 4 days after Tuesday, we'll have the Postal Service deadline. At that point, we won't be able to accept any more ballots that are postmarked by Election Day, but delivered to our office. Then on the Monday, after that Saturday, that's the cure deadline, when anybody who has been notified that their signature did not match what we had in the system, there's a process in place for them to cure that ballot and confirm their identity so that we can count their ballot. That's Monday. After that, we have to report to the Secretary of State because we're a bottom-up voter registration system, not top-down. So the Secretary has to combine the report for all 17 counties and identify if anybody's done anything illegal, like voting in Nye County and Clark, or in Carson and in Washoe, along those lines. So we have to verify those reports, and then we're finally able to count our provisional ballots, which are being submitted in the in-person voting for early voting and Election Day. So depending on how close the race is, we might not be releasing the final results until just before the canvasses, which is going to be November 18th.
Now, John, we do want to talk more because he did mention it and those deadlines as far as there being like 5 days. What does that all mean?
Well, there's a process, obviously, and it's one that they're going to have to go through. And I think for people watching this, what they want to keep in mind is that by Monday, you need to, if you're contacted by the elections department saying, hey, your signature that you signed when you got to vote isn't matching up with the signature we have on record, so we need you to cure your ballot. And that basically means going down there, showing your ID, saying, that's me, and they say, okay, you're good to go, and we're going to count your vote now. But voters who get that have only until Monday, and we just learned from the Secretary of State's office tonight that there's just under 6,000 votes in Clark County alone, that number's slightly higher statewide, that need to be cured. So that could have an impact when you're talking about, a race that might be razor thin. Mm-hmm. So if you want your candidate, if you're obviously you want your vote to count, and it really could have an impact on these races.
Yeah, we're We're still going to be waiting for election results. Back during the primary, they came in starting around 9 or 10, so the first batch at least. So we'll see once we get there. John, anything else to add to your interview with the County of Registrar?
Well, first, can I just say it's fascinating to see you with all this equipment?
I know, I'm really trying.
It's like
over here.
It's like the new frontier of what we do here.
Yes.
I would just say, when we start reporting results tonight, it'll only be maybe 4% of the precincts, 10% of the precincts. It'll be a small number at first, and then it might come in fast and furious. But those initial votes, no matter how your political orientation is or who you voted for, I wouldn't get too, apoplectic about it, too disturbed, because it's just it's the initial. You have to let the process play out, and really, for some of these races, we may not know, just like Gloria said, until the 18th, especially if it just comes down to, maybe a few hundred votes, and then who knows what effect the weather had on the turnout. But just looking at our reporter live shots tonight,
Right,
the lines
exactly.
are huge.
Yeah, all over town.
They seem bigger than the last election, but
Right.
maybe we were just at busier spots. But it was certainly a huge turnout tonight.
During the rain, of all things, too. So they
Rain
all,
and the wind,
they all came out. Wow.
and a snowstorm in northern Nevada.
Jeez, man. Oh, that's right. Our friends up in Reno, which
Yeah.
we'll have some more from later on. John, thank you so much for joining us. He'll be back on Fox 5 News tonight, coming up at 10 for some special election coverage. Hopefully, we'll get some results. Some
Yes.
first batch of
We hope
results
so.
coming.
We expect to.
Yep.
Thanks, Cody.
All right, John, thank you. All right, let's go back to Local News Live now. Check in to see what they're doing nationally across the country. So many races are so important this election, this midterm. So let's head on back out to our national partners, Local News Live.
I'm going to double check that in just a second. Let's go over to Wisconsin. Ron Johnson still holding on to that slim lead, about 70% counted, 50.8 to 49.2%. We're going to want to compare that to Tony Evers in just a second. And of course, the race everybody's watching as it comes down to the wire again. And we've reminded you throughout the night, one of these candidates has to get to 50%. Otherwise, it will be another runoff in Georgia. Right now, 84% counted. Herschel Walker's leading by about 0.8% of that vote. And I was just looking at the map. There's still a fair amount of votes to come in from areas surrounding Atlanta. Also a good chunk of the roll vote, too, to keep in mind. Okay, so we got those races. Let's go out west. Arizona. Mark Kelly right now running at 58% to Blake Masters, 39%. 47 is counted. Let me go back here. Actually, while I have this. So we look at Arizona in the governor's race. Katie Hobbs is running about 57%. So Hobbs, the Democrat for governor, running about a percentage below the Democrat for Senate in Mark Kelly. About 50% has been counted in those races. Well, while we have it, let's stick on the governor's side. We have not called Josh Shapiro yet, but he's leading by about 54 to 43%, about 68% of that vote is counted. That could be one that is called soon. We'll have more numbers coming in over the next few minutes, but for now, I'll send it back to John and Graham in D.C.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. Great job. Ryan spoke about Arizona. We haven't spoken about Arizona all that much, and interesting results when you consider the polling for Arizona on both the Senate side and the governor's race leading up to Election Day. It's early. Not all the votes are counted. Not all the votes will be counted by the end of this evening. But as things stand right now, it looks good for Democrats, surprisingly, as it relates to the governor's race. And it looks like a good margin as it relates to the Senate race as well.
It really does. It's definitely not as close as we maybe would have thought it would have been at this point, with so many votes already counted. Certainly not as close as we thought. Arizona is such a unique state in that about a third of the voters there are independent. It's a very moderate state where you have to kind of appeal to the moderates. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe the Republicans were a little too extreme for the voters of Arizona. When all is said and done, again, still a lot of votes to count, half the votes to count there in Arizona, but both the Senate and governor candidates with a healthy lead, with still a lot of votes to come in from Maricopa County, too.
Well, let's go out to Phoenix, Arizona. Sarah Robinson of Arizona's Family is at the Arizona GOP headquarters in Scottsdale, Arizona. Sarah, what's the mood out there? You're seeing these numbers coming in right now. They're not good numbers so far for Republicans. Is the mood kind of muted right now, or are they saying, wait, all the votes have not been counted just yet?
The mood here is not low whatsoever. I can tell you there are over 340 journalists from local and national, even international news here to watch this race. And although the Democrats have a pretty healthy lead so far in the night, the Republicans here are very hopeful that they will be able to overcome that lead. They are saying that they are going to be riding that red wave all through the night. And just to put this into context for you, the votes that came in early were from Maricopa County. Now, traditionally, a lot of people do mail-in ballots there, early voting. So they're still hopeful that the rest of the votes tonight will be Republican. They also think that they are going to end up having a clean sweep. So we've seen several Republican congressmen come out tonight to talk about that red wave, to talk about that excitement that they feel. The mood here is not low whatsoever, and it's actually continuing to grow. We have not heard, though, from Carrie Lake or Mark Fincham or Blake Masters. We're not sure if they're in the building yet, but people are waiting on the edge of their seats to hear from them. So we'll be sure to keep you updated, but I think the excitement is only going to continue to grow as more results come in from day of voting. So we'll be sure to keep you updated, but I'll send it back to you for now, John.
Well, Sarah, you mentioned the top candidates in these top office-holding positions in Arizona. The candidate for the Senate, Blake Masters, the candidate for Secretary of State, Mark Fincham, the candidate for Governor, Carrie Lake. They're all there this evening. They all intend to speak at some point during the evening.
Yes, they are expected to speak. We're just not sure when. But people in the audience every 5 minutes ago, or every 5 minutes rather, will start shouting Carrie or Blake and Lake. So that excitement is definitely growing. I do think that we will hear from them at some point. I did hear some people in the audience say that they thought it was a good sign that Secretary Hobbs came out at the Democratic headquarters earlier in the night. They're thinking that might be their good luck charm, that she might not be feeling as confident about her position tonight. So they're thinking that it's a good sign that they haven't heard from any of the three heavy hitters tonight. But obviously, only time will tell as we continue to get those results in.
Great. Sarah Robinson out there in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thanks a lot. Great report. We may come back to you as the evening progresses. More votes come in, and we see how the Republican candidates in Arizona fare throughout the evening. Thanks again, Sarah. So, you know, it's pretty interesting.
Welcome back to our special election coverage here at the Den at Fox 5 Studios. In the Den at Fox 5 Studios, we are going to now be speaking with, well, actually earlier today I spoke with UNLV professor Daniel Lee, and we talked about really the significance of this election and why it's so important, why really the whole country takes a look at Nevada during this time. He also talks about the Senate race and our gubernatorial race and how they differ from last year as well. Let me pull that up right now and we'll take a listen. Thank you so much for doing this, Professor.
Normally,
now,
whoever loses will concede quickly, and then the other person declared the winner. But it seemed like Governor Rhodes was kind of leaving the door open a little bit.
It's really nothing different than what we're seeing. However, I do want to get your thoughts on why it's so significant this time around compared to possibly other years in the past.
Yeah, so it's significant for a couple of reasons. Kind of the big reasons in terms of national politics is that the balance of power in the U.S. Senate, right, hangs it really relies on what happens in Nevada and a couple of the other close states like Georgia and Pennsylvania, right? So right now it's a 50-50 split in the Senate. Vice president gets a tiebreaker, so that gives Democrats a tiebreaker. So all Republicans need to do is gain one seat. And this is one of those seats. Cortez Masto is one of the most vulnerable Democratic incumbents. If they can flip her seat, if Laxalt can win it, then that goes a long way to helping Republicans take control of the Senate.
Now, you touched on the Senate race there. What does that look like in recent history as far as it goes? Back in 2018, I believe, was the last Senate race. What's different now?
Right. So, yeah, that's interesting you bring up 2018 because 2018 is basically the polar opposite of the conditions for this year. So 2018, that's when we were talking about a blue wave election. right? So that was 2 years into Trump's first term, a term in office as president. He had very low approval ratings, much like Biden has low approval ratings today. So that was viewed as a good year for Democrats. And so that favored, both Sisolak and Jackie Rosen in terms of winning the Senate race in that year, right? So that's where we had Dean Heller, a Republican, in that case getting replaced by a Democrat in that blue wave election. So that's we're kind of seeing the polar opposite, the exact opposite in this election cycle.
Got it. And
right. So yeah, I'll just get So right. So in general, like Nevada is a swing state. So that's like why all these statewide elections are so close, right? One election year goes to so consistently for Democratic presidential candidates more recently, right? But again, we've just recently had a Republican governor. We just had recently a Republican senator, right? So that's like why, every election year in Nevada is so hotly contested.
And speaking of this as well, we talk about Adam Laxalt, and he was in the gubernatorial race back in 2018, and now he's in the Senate. Let's go back and talk about the gubernatorial race. We're looking at it. It's Governor Steve Sisolak as the incumbent, as well as Sheriff Joe Lombardo. What are we seeing? We're seeing it in the polls. What can you give us as far as what your perspective and what you're seeing?
Right. So a lot of politics today is very partisan and driven by national politics. So that's like why we're seeing, Biden's low approval rating also hurting Sisolak. The other problems that Sisolak has is, he was governor during the pandemic in Nevada and, took a very aggressive stance as far as shutting down the economy, right? So that hurt a lot of voters. And that is the big issue for voters this election cycle is the economy, right? So this is their chance now to kind of, shoot back at Sisolak for, what he did to the Nevada economy. Some people lost their jobs, right? So that's like another thing. So not only is there low approval for Biden and Democrats, which is hurting Democratic candidates more broadly, but Sisolak also as governor, had a lot of unpopular policies during COVID, and that's also hurting him in this election.
And as recent polls have it, it's neck and neck. Is that what you're seeing?
Right. So I think all the polls, people are asking, okay, what did the polls tell us? Can they really predict who's going to win? Well, I mean, they're predicting that it's going to be a close race, right? So a couple of things that Sisolak and the other Democrats have in their favor is that they're incumbents. So they were able to raise huge sums of money. So when you look across the races, by and large, the Democratic incumbents have outraised their Republican challengers. So that's helping them really stay in the race, even though this is a year that favors Republican candidates, right? But again, like those two things kind of balance each other out, which is why we have a toss-up election across the board, really.
UNLV professor Daniel Lee speaking there to me earlier today, and he did mention the campaign funding, and I should mention this is as of October 19th. Catherine Cortez Masto, a total of over $54 million in her race. As of October 19th as well for Adam Laxalt, this is the Senate race. He brought in about $15 million, so you can see there the comparison between the campaign funding for that. We want to head over now to our friends over at Local News Live. We do expect our reporter Drew Andre to be covering more from the Republican headquarters here in Nevada. So let's go ahead and head on over now. Currently, right now, over on Local News Live here in Georgia, they are talking. They have Stacey Abrams, who is up right now. Let's go ahead and listen in there to see, again, this is Georgia governor's race. Stacey Abrams, the Democrat in that, versus Brian Kemp. This is for Georgia. Let's take a look now at our national partners, Local News Live.
This for a fight for what we know to be true deep down in our bones, that the state of Georgia, the people of Georgia, deserve more. Over the last year, in big cities and small towns, in living rooms, in classrooms across the state, I have met thousands of people face to face. It feels like 2.3 million. And here's what I know for sure. We come from different backgrounds, different religions, speak different languages. We have different dreams, and we feel passionate about different issues in very different ways. But despite our differences, despite what people will tell us separates us, for the most part, we want the same things. We want to live in a Georgia that works for everyone. A Georgia where every person has a voice in our democracy and doesn't have to show up early to make it so. Because voting is a fundamental right, not a privilege for the wealthy few. A Georgia where we can all breathe clean air and drink clean water because we decided to use our power to fix our climate and save our planet, not drill down to take titanium out and spoil what we have in the state of Georgia. A Georgia where hope lives in the heart of every child, but it sits there, rests there along with opportunity because we invested in quality public education, a pathway to a life full of dignity, and no shooters in their schools. A Georgia where every person can not only afford to see a doctor, but there's a hospital if they need one. They can get their prescriptions filled because drug companies and insurance companies aren't able to block it, and because we've expanded Medicaid because 500,000 Georgians deserve access to health care in this state. That is why we fight. I am talking about the Georgia of our greatest imagination. And here's what gives me hope. Over the last year across this great state, countless
and
Georgians
we are
were ready
listening
to come off the
into
sidelines and
Stacey
fight for that
Abrams
Georgia.
there in Georgia.
Standing
She's the
behind me is one of
Democrat
the most
running for
extraordinary
governor
women I have
in
ever
Georgia, running against Brian Kemp, who it looks like will win another term, defeating her tonight. Today, so we wanted to take a listen in on what Stacey Abrams does have to say there in Georgia. Let's go ahead now, get to some more local coverage.
From the
Drew,
moment I
as
got into
mentioned,
politics,
Andre, Fox
I have
5
always
reporter.
promised
Drew
to
Andre's
level
going
with
to
the
be
people of
joining
Georgia.
Local News Live here
And I'm here
shortly
to
as
tell
soon
you
as
that what we have
they are
architected in this state
taking
does not
Stacey
end
Abrams here
today.
in
And this
Georgia,
woman
so
is
we're gonna
one of the
definitely
reasons
stand by
why.
for that.
Lauren Brawargo
You may notice
is
a
our
difference in tonight's
champion.
result.
She is our
These
friend,
results starting
and
to
she
come on
deserves
the
our
bottom of the
praise
screen
and
as
our
we
thanks.
take Local News
This
Live
is
coverage.
the
You
Georgia
can see,
she's helping
and
us
there
build.
is a different way. Now, in the past, it was about a percentage reporting, and that's how they would base the results coming.
I'm here because
now,
my friend Allegra
here it
Lawrence
is now.
Hardy.
This is different. The Associated Press used to use the number of precincts reporting to show how much of the vote has
is
been
one of the
counted and how much
fiercest
remains to
attorneys
be
you will ever
tallied.
meet.
The difference
And she
this
has
year
poured her heart
with the way
and her
people are
soul
voting
and
nowadays
her
with
time
mail-in ballots
and her treasure to
early
defending
voting,
our rights
the number of
and our
precincts reporting
democracy,
may not
and she
be
will never
as
be the
reliable.
for
So
doing
that
for
means
us
tonight
what we
when
can't
you
do on our own.
see
Thank you,
results
Allegra
coming
Lawrence Hardy.
online at Fox 5 at the bottom of your screen during the 10 and 11 p.m. news, you will see that it'll be estimated
I see in
percentage
this
of
crowd
votes.
women
So that
and
is the
men
difference
who have been
on
a
the
part of this
AP
journey
Associated
since I
Press
put my
reporting,
name on a ballot
these
in
precincts this year.
2006.
It's going to
And
be
while
a
I may not
total
have crossed
number
the
of
finish
votes,
line,
the
that does
percentage
not
of
mean we
that
will ever
number.
stop
And
running
that
for a
percentage
better
can
Georgia.
fluctuate based on voter turnout, and the estimated vote total
We will
will
never
not be
stop
published at
running
100%.
for the truth
You'll
that we
never
know
see
to
it
be
at
true.
100%
For the people we
until
know
the
need to see us.
elections
For the
are
ones who don't know
certified.
they
That is
deserve to
how
stand,
AP
let
is
alone
going
run.
to be reporting now.
And tonight we
As I
must
was
be
just
honest,
mentioning,
even though my
we
fight,
do want to take a
our
look
fight
at
for the governor's
the
mansion may
35
have come up
U.S. Senate
short.
races
I'm pretty
across
tall.
the country. We've been talking about the Senate races all night long, and as you can see now, here is the map of the Senate races. Leaning blue and likely blue are in blue. You can see on this map, leaning red, likely red are all
I am
on
here
red
because
in this
this
map,
is
and
a
those
moment
toss-up states
where
are
despite
there.
every obstacle.
And with that, let me go in here. I do want to show you the toss-up states as well. We are one of them here in Nevada, as well as Arizona. Pennsylvania is well noted on this map. You can see highlighted in orange. A lot of voting taking place today across the valley. That includes throughout Clark County, and we want to get out to one of the polling locations that have been really busy throughout the day. Fox 5's Regina On was out there throughout the day covering the polls, and of course out in the rain, because we are getting rain, and we got rain today throughout the day. But according to our video, it's not looking like it has done much for the voter turnout. Many people still turning out to vote today on Election Day. Let's check in with Regina On.
Here at the gallery at Sunset in Henderson, people came in flocks today to get their voices heard, and voters came out all afternoon long as doors opened at 7 a.m. and of course wrapping up at 7 p.m. And a lot of young voters out today saying they want to take a step forward, especially in getting their voices heard. And here, in fact, if you are a first-time voter this afternoon, they actually did a round of applause. And one of the couples that I spoke with, very first time voting today, and they say that it was really important for them to come out and do so.
There's so many things going on in society right now that many people are not aware of. So I feel like we should be the change and make a statement. And, you know, this is our country and we should love our country. So that's why I think everyone should come out and vote.
And a variety of issues that's very important to the voters that came out today and spent time in line all afternoon long. And it'll be interesting to see the turnout and how the other polling locations did, as well, as this was one of the most popular ones. But for now, here at the Sunset Galleria Mall in Henderson, I'm Regina On, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
All right, Regina, thank you for that. Let's go back out now to Local News Live. Our Fox 5 reporter, Drew Andre, he's going to be joining the coverage, the national coverage on Local News Live. We want to toss back out to there right now.
Let's go to Ohio. J.D. Vance delivering a victory speech.
And you guys may have noticed that the national media was very interested in our race. So Taylor and Luke had their hands full. God bless you guys. Thank you. Will Martin and Matt Williams, who did everything that we asked them to do and did it very well. Thank you guys. Couldn't have done it without you. To Noah Baker, Nick Morgan, and Matt Middlestate, who kept us on time, made sure we got where we needed to go, and made sure we did everything we needed to do. And then I want to thank so much the people helping us build coalitions all across the state of Ohio. It's such an important job because, of course, now that I'm the senator-elect for the great state of Ohio, we're just... Thank you. We've got a solid foundation, not just to win races, but to actually get to Washington and serve the great people of Ohio. So I got to thank Graham, Jack Mahoney, Caleb, Daniel, Joe, Thomas, and Seth, our incredible field directors, and of course, Addie, doing great things for us. And I want to say a few words about our incredible financial team, Powers, Angie Strader, Chris Applegate, and Hannah. Thank you for everything you guys did. And finally, let me just say a few things about the three guys who I think constantly were in my ear about what we needed to do, about how we needed to execute this campaign. My dear friend, Jay Shabria, thank you for everything you did. Andrew Sarabian, a great guy, a Massachusetts guy, but still a good guy. Welcome him to Ohio, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Sarabian. And I already, of course, thanked Jordan Wiggins. I also want to thank Luke Thompson for everything that you did helping us on the outside. So there's the thank yous. All right, there's the thank yous. Look, I think that we get a chance to govern, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see what happens across the country. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think that we're going to continue to have some good victories all across the country. We got to see the returns come in, of course. But here's the thing: we've been given an opportunity to do something, and that's to govern. and to govern to make the lives of the people of Ohio better. That's exactly what I aim to do, and because of you, I get a chance to do it. I got a call from Tim Ryan, of course, about a half an hour ago, conceding the election. It was very gracious, and I appreciate Tim making the effort there. Look, I know Tim Ryan, we obviously disagree on a lot of issues. The guy loves the state of Ohio, and I appreciate the gracious phone call. I appreciate the effort that his campaign put in. Thank you. But look, spending time with these guys just a few minutes ago and talking about what an incredible honor it is to get to serve the people of Ohio in the United States Senate. What an incredible honor it is to have gotten to run this campaign. Win or lose, I said it was one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. But now the people of Ohio have given us a job. And what we need to do over the next couple of years, over the next 6 years, for the full length of this Senate term, whoever's in the majority, whatever the president looks like, we have a very simple job to do. It's to go to work every single day and fight for the people of Ohio, fight for our workers. Fight for our families, fight for the people struggling with the opioid addiction problem, fight for the people, the single moms struggling to raise babies just like my mom raised me. We have got a great state, and we have got a great country. To the people of Ohio, I want to say something. I know, of course, we won a very good victory, and I'm very proud of it. Because of all of you, we won a great victory. But I want to say everything to whether you voted for me or not, if you're watching on TV, whether you voted for me or not, the thing that I promise to do is go to the United States Senate and fight every single day for the people of Ohio. Thanks to you, we get an opportunity to do just that. I can't help but to offer some reflections. I mean, every single person on this stage knew my beloved Mamaw, the woman who raised me. And she died right before I left for Iraq and the United States Marine Corps. And you guys have heard me talk about her, what an incredible woman she was, what an unusual woman she was. You know, we joked that if we could wheel her up here today, she would drop probably about 5 F-bombs on national TV with all these cameras looking at us. But she was a proud product of working people. She believed in the American dream. She believed in the promise of this country. And I guess my simple promise to you, to everybody here, you're not always going to agree with every vote that I take. You're not going to agree with every single amendment that I offer in the United States Senate. But I will never forget the woman who raised me. I will never forget where I came from. And I will never forget the great people of Ohio. Thank you for this honor to serve you. I'll fight for you every day. God bless you guys, and thank you.
Ohio's next senator, replacing Rob Portman, who's retiring. And it's an opportunity for him to serve in that capacity. And it's a win for Republicans. They held on to that seat. That's something that was in doubt to a certain extent about a month or so ago. But in the last few weeks of the campaign, he seemed to stretch out his lead over Congressman Tim Ryan, and that's what we saw take place tonight.
Yeah, and now J.D. Vance really has an opportunity to make a name for himself nationally, potentially. Of course, he is a darling of former President Trump, so it will be interesting to see how that plays out headed toward 2024 as well.
He certainly owes a lot to Donald Trump. Donald Trump put his thumb on the scale, said, "You're my nominee for Ohio," and it's paid off in that regard. Let's go to Ryan Pierce. He's at our election center. Let's take a look. What are the latest numbers you have for us in all of these very competitive races for governor and races for the Senate?
Yeah, John, we'll get to J.D. Vance and the rest of the Senate in just a moment. Let's start with the House and go over some of those tight races. We have some new numbers that give us a bit of an indication. First, a great night, at least right now, for Republicans in New York. 2 seats to point out. Number one, let me refresh it real quick. We got 2 seats that we've kept a close eye on in New York. Right now, Republicans lead them both. This one is very close. 95% left counted for the vote. And the Republican, Marcus Molinaro, is leading by about 2 percentage points. If Republicans thought that was good, this is great. Michael Lawler, and this is turning into a huge upset, is leading 53% to 46%. Sean Patrick Maloney, in a district that Democrats were expected to carry by about 10%, they are trailing by 7% here with 95% of the vote counted. Now, some positive news for Democrats. We go down to North Carolina. And this kind of goes along with the early voting numbers. New York, they were sluggish. In North Carolina, they were robust. And right now, we've got what looks like it's going to be a big win for Willie Nickel. He picks up a seat that was held by Ted Budd, who is likely going to win the senator race for North Carolina. That was an open seat, and a Democrat is going to win that. So Democrats pick up a seat there in North Carolina. Let's go to Michigan. Elisa Slotkin, 50% of the vote. She was favored in this race. She had help from big names across the country, including Republican Liz Cheney. She's trailing by 12%, 49% of the vote counted. Let's go over to Illinois. Earlier tonight, we had Sherry Bustos on. She used to represent the area. It's been changed because of redistricting. The area around the 17th district. Right now, 82% of the vote counted. There's supposed to be a toss-up. Eric Sorensen, the Democrat, is leading by 3 percentage points to take former Democrat in an area turning Republican Sherry Bustos' seat. Let's go out to Nebraska. It looks like Don Bacon has overtaken Tony Vargas. That was a bit of a swing district we were watching. He's up by 6%. And real quick, let's check back in with Lauren Boebert here. Still 73% of the vote counted. She is trailing her Democratic challenger by about 3%. Okay, let's go over what do we got here. This would be the Senate. Yeah, let's go Senate. Here's a big one right now. 76% of the vote counted. John Fetterman is leading Mehmet Oz by about 1.4, 1.5%. It's tough to tell what percentage of that is mail-in and early voting. A lot of times Pennsylvania has to wait till the day after to count those. Right now, John Fetterman is leading by about 1.5%. Down to Georgia. It is still very tight, 86% counted. I'll blow this up. Herschel Walker leading 49.2% to 48.8%. Again, the winner in Georgia has to get to 50%. Right now, that looks like it may not happen. We'll wait and see, though. We're waiting for that final about 15% to come in and see where it comes in from. A couple notes to make in Washington. Patty Murray, she was thought to be maybe a Democrat in a tough situation. She's leading 57 to 43% with 57% of the vote counted. It's looking a lot like fellow Democrat Michael Bennet, who wrapped up his race in Colorado. He also was maybe in trouble for a moment this week, but he looks like he's going to prevail. And then the other Democrat that might be at risk, Maggie Hassan, has wrapped up her race against Donald Bolduc. So that's a big hold for Democrats in New Hampshire. I'm going to make a quick note here. Hassan won that state in 2016 by less than half a percentage point. She's winning now by 13%, 56% of the vote has been counted. Okay, one more big one to keep track of. 80% of the vote in nearly. Ron Johnson leading Mandela Barnes about 51.5 to 48.5%. We just got, of course, J.D. Vance wrapping up his race against Tim Ryan. That state was moving towards the Republican side over the past month. So how do these numbers here from Wisconsin compare to the governor's race? Well, we have a quick moment. I'm going to pull up the governor's race. So you've got the Republican leading the Senate race, but you've got the Democrat leading the governor's race. That is pretty parallel to what polls were showing leading up to this election. 79% of the vote is counted. Here's an interesting one. Republicans thought they could pick up Oregon, and they still might. 47% of the vote counted. Tina Kotek, the Democrat, leading Christine Drozen by about a percentage point. That is one to watch over the next hour or so. But for now, I'll send it back to John and Graham in D.C.
Thanks, Ryan. Great job there. Great job in terms of breaking it down for both the House race, the Senate race, and also what we see playing out in governor's races all across the country. You know, we're going to be looking at this over the course of the next few days. The vote, not finished yet. There's still going to be a lot of counting to go in the next 48 hours, maybe even longer, maybe some recounts taking place, maybe some legal challenges. But it's an interesting race that has developed here because there was no red wave, the way we typically define wave. Yes, I think ultimately Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives, but it's not by a huge margin like they were predicting.
You're right, and the Democrats were very scared going into tonight, and it hasn't been nearly as bad. A lot of the Senate races still outstanding, but of course, they still have reason to be hopeful that they could still hold on to the Senate, which they would be very happy if they come out of tonight holding on to the Senate. But again, it's going to take several days, especially Pennsylvania and Georgia, the ones we're following, and then we've been tracking former President Trump and his impact on all of this too. Is interesting. We were just talking about.
Yeah, we don't know that just yet because
Yeah.
we have to see what the results are in places like Nevada and Arizona. But he's got a mixed record, because he did endorse in the primary season. Some of his endorsees did well. J.D. Vance, perfect example of that. Others, not so much. Don Baldock, one example. Blake Masters in Arizona doesn't seem to be doing well in terms of trying to win that seat from Mark Kelly, but that's something that will also be evaluated in the days ahead, leading up to an announcement that he says will come next week, an announcement that a lot of us are speculating will be an announcement that he will run again for the White House in 2024.
Yeah, and the former president making a lot of down ballot endorsements as well. So when he spoke tonight, one of the first things he did was list off the races that he had won so far, his candidates, and he includes a lot of those down ballot races to kind of pump up his numbers, I think, a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see once the big races are called, how he'll spend some of the results if his candidates don't make the win column. Some of those more high-profile candidates.
Besides the wins, the losses, who controls the House, who controls the Senate, which governor's races will be changing hands. Also, the big story, I think, tonight coming out of Florida, Ron DeSantis with a strong victory for re-election, got over 58% of the vote. I think that's surprised a lot of people in terms of his margin of victory, and it sets himself up well if he wants to seek the Republican nomination in 2024.
Yeah, you could tell Ron DeSantis was very happy tonight in his victory speech. He was more animated, really pumped up, you could tell tonight, as it really was. It was the perfect primetime spot for him to make that victory speech. It was early on when people were kind of just settling into the night, and that's probably one of the more memorable moments, at least as far as the victory speeches that we've carried so far tonight, that may stick out in people's minds. And you have to know that that was a thorn in the side of the former president watching from his home in Florida, even after he said he voted earlier today for Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, it sets up.
Welcome back here to the Den at Fox 5 Studios. We are just getting started. We have about an hour left of our special coverage here. I want to take a look at the questions, question 1 through 3 that were on your ballot when you voted. Let's take a look here. You can see question 1 has to do with the Equal Rights Amendment. Question 2 raises the minimum wage, if passed, to $12 an hour. And then question 3 there as well opens top 5 primaries ranked choice general election, which establishes an open top 5 for the primaries and ranked choice voting for the general election. So that is either a no or a yes vote there. And going back to question 2, incrementally, this would increase the minimum wage to $12 for all employees, but by July 1st, 2024. And then that question number 1 you see on your screen, this adds a new section to the Nevada Constitution that states equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the state or any of its political subdivisions on account of race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression of age, disability, ancestry, or national origin. And that is all 3 of the questions that you saw on your ballot, whether you early voted or you were at the polls today in the rain. And we are going to talk with our field reporters a little bit more. We have Maddie White at the Democratic headquarters at the Encore, as well as Drew Andre, Fox 5 reporter, as well at Republican headquarters. That is happening and taking place at Red Rock Resort this year. Let's go ahead now. We are continuing to stand by. We're taking a live picture. This is here at the Republican headquarters. You can see there at Red Rock, and we are standing by there because we're going to be talking to Drew Andre here shortly. You can see that on that feed, that live picture right there of the podium, awaiting the Republican candidates to come up and talk, and we'll see if that happens in the hours to come. Now, let me go ahead. Now, we do want to talk about the balance of power because that is something that's a hot topic, and our very own Jacqueline Schultz, she's actually at our Storyteller right now in our big studio, kind of going through the balance of power, what it looks like this midterm election, what it possibly could look like once all the results come in. Jacqueline, we'll toss it over to you.
Power in Congress is in the balance tonight. Taking a look at the seats that the Dems have won so far in the Senate. 7 won by the Democrats, including notably Chuck Schumer keeping his seat. For the Republicans, 15 seats so far, and that includes Marco Rubio of Florida. So the question is, where exactly do some of the swing states go into play? The 4 that are really everyone's looking at. Pennsylvania, John Fetterman is in the lead over Mehmet Oz right now, one of the races that is considered to be flippable. In Georgia, too close to call, 49 and 49%, neck and neck. There's already expected that it could go to another runoff. And in Arizona, Mark Kelly actually potentially has a comfortable lead, but the slimmest margins out of all the Senate races tonight are truly in Nevada between Catherine Cortez Masto and Adam Laxalt. Neck and neck. A lot of political experts say it's too close to determine who might be the winner. So there's a lot of expectation and pins on needles from across the country looking at the Nevada Senate race tonight.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and we'll have much more from Jacqueline at the Storyteller coming up tonight on our special election coverage at 10 and 11 on Fox 5 News. So you're taking a live look now at the Republican headquarters at the Red Rock Resort Hotel and Casino here close to Summerlin there, and we will be checking in with Drew Andre coming up next, so stay with us. Welcome back here to the Den at Fox 5 Studios. I'm Cody Lee, Fox 5 digital news reporter. If you've been joining us all night, we've been really trying to keep you up to date as far as everything that's happening during Election Day, as well as at the polls, and even the weather too, that really didn't cause any sort of low voter turnout. Really, if you take a look at the lines that we have been seeing, we are going to be joined by Kim Passoff and Drew Andre here shortly, as well as Maddie White, who is at the Democratic headquarters at the Encore. So we will get to them in a second. We do want to mention that right here into our newsroom right now, all of the voting centers have been cleared as far as the lines go. Remember, if you were there at 7 o'clock on the dot, you were able to still vote. 6:59 on the dot, you were still able to wait in line and vote. We are getting word into the newsroom that Galleria Mall was actually the last to finish. So Clark County now is completely all finished, and we'll hope to see those results start to trickle in here soon. As I mentioned earlier, back in the primary a few months ago, those results started to come in around 9:30, 10 o'clock, actually right at the top of our newscast. So we're going to start to see those soon, and those will be at the bottom of your screen on this live stream, as well as when you join us for Fox 5 News at 10 and 11 tonight. We are going to be joined by Kim Passoff at the Election Department in Clark County coming right up. Stay with us. Well, welcome back, everybody. We are going to be heading out to the Clark County Election Department now. That's where our Kim Passoff is joining us live out there. Let me go ahead and get Kim here so you guys can go ahead and see her. There she is. Hey, Kim, how's it looking out there at the Election Department?
Busy evening back in the studio, also here at the election department. Chase, if we can pan over, we can see that ballots are coming in right now. You can see those carts by the door. We have some election workers even singing here. It is quite the evening. But yeah, election ballots, they are coming in quickly. This is the drop-off location. We do know at this point all of the polls in Clark County, the last voters have finished up. They are all closed here. In Washoe in Lyon County, though, at last check, there were still some polls open there, some voting locations open. We do know that that area has had bad weather today, snow and rain. Even driving over here, we saw that there were quite a few accidents on the road. So obviously, we can see some ballots. There's another box right there, rolling right in. They are labeled on the front which precincts they are coming from. But they got a lot of work to do here. Chase, if you can pan behind me, you can see there is a big stack of ballots right there waiting to be counted. But they are waiting until all of the polls are closed across the state. And as we mentioned, that has not happened yet. There are still polls open while voters wait to get those final votes in. Now, we do know that tonight, what we expect to get here are all early voting ballots, as well as voting from today, the numbers, and mail-in ballots that were received before today. Anything that was mailed in today or later will be counted at another time, but that is what we are expecting. As you can see, more ballots rolling in. They are rolling in by the second. A lot of work to do here. We know that there are 1.3 million registered voters here in Clark County. Early voting, they had about 200,000 people show up, so all of that has yet to be counted. Of course, the machines can do a pretty efficient job with that, so we are hoping to get numbers by the end of the evening. And as soon as we do get more information on that, of course, we will bring you those numbers as soon as we do get them in. Cody, back to you.
Yeah, Kim, I have a couple questions. There's a lot of people out behind you there at the election department. How many do you say, can you guess how many people are out behind you right now working on this election?
Well, I actually do know the answer to that. We have 60 volunteers here right now who are working hard. They've got lunches ready to go. They are ready to be here through the evening to get those votes counted, everything run through the machines and get us totals as soon as possible. The County Elections Department tells us there's no shortage of volunteers for this election to do the work that needs to be done here. So we do expect to get results at some point this evening. But again, we are waiting for all polls to close across the state, which has not happened at this point.
And we've been talking about it all night, Kim. The Department of Justice has been sent all across the country. Have you seen any representatives there? I know you just got to the scene, but have you seen the DOJ representative there overseeing this election?
Well, I haven't looked for any DOJ poll monitors at this point. I did see someone when I was walking in that had a label on their shirt that said observer, somebody here just to observe the process, watch those ballots come in. Again, the counting hasn't started, but somebody here just to make sure that the ballots were handed off correctly. Again, this is open to the public. Anybody can be an observer of elections. So if that's something that you are interested in, you can certainly do that the next election cycle. But yeah, there are observers here making sure that everything is going smoothly. And of course, tons of workers to get all of the work done, hopefully sooner rather than later, so we can get you some results tonight.
And those election observers from both parties out there, right, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Kim Passoff joining us out at the Clark County Election Department tonight. Kim, thank you so much for doing this. We'll see you back at 10.
Absolutely, Cody.
All right, Kim Passoff there live from the Clark County Election Department. And with that, we are going to be right back. We do want to speak with Maddie White. She is our reporter over at Democratic headquarters at Encore, and then we'll get to Drew Andre here shortly at GOP headquarters at the Red Rock Hotel. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We want to go back out now to the Democratic headquarters where Senator Jackie Rosen is speaking right now to the crowd out there. Let's take a listen.
Made it easier than ever before for eligible voters to make their voices heard. We're a model for well-run, accessible, and secure elections under Democrats and Republicans. And that's what a democracy is all about. And so, as we wait for the final results later this week, let's be proud of the work that we've put in and confident in the results. And like every election, Nevada Democrats, all of you did the hard work this year. We did everything we could to get out our fellow Nevadans to go out and vote. And I am confident that when all the ballots are counted, we will win. So give yourselves applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Go Nevada. Thank you, everyone. We so appreciate you.
They build wooden houses on frozen ponds in the summertime when the water's gone. Diagonal lines in their rolled out lawns, and the sage always smells so pretty. But nobody cares where the birds have gone when the rain.
On the East Coast, but here right now we don't have anything to say, but as we learn it, live action, we'll come to you immediately and let you know where we are. Joe Lombardo is in the building. Woo!
Welcome back to the Den at Fox 5 Studios. We're here. This is Nevada's election headquarters, and we are actually going to be joined now with Drew Andre, Fox 5 reporter, out at the GOP headquarters. That's happening at the Red Rock Resort today. And Drew, what are you seeing out there? Who's coming up on stage so far? What do you got to tell us?
Yeah, well, so far we just saw Michelle Fiore went up on stage, and she said we're expecting to hear some results within the next 30 minutes or so. As you can see, we've got a packed room here, a relatively small area here in this ballroom at Red Rock, but we know all of the major candidates at this point seem to be here. We've heard that Adam Laxalt is in the building along with Sheriff Joe Lombardo. So those are the two biggest races people are keeping an eye on here, and those candidates are here in the building. As we look around, I'd say a few hundred supporters that we have in this building. Everyone's been keeping their eyes, of course, on the TVs, and there's been a lot of applauses that we've seen from time to time as some of these big races in other parts of the country have been called. Of course, the cheers coming when they've been in favor of the Republican Party. So we don't know exactly who next is going to step up on stage, but they just told us that we're expecting some of our first results to come in now probably less than about a half hour or so. Now, one thing, Cody, we do know is that both of these two big races that are important for the Republicans here, the governor's race and the Senate race, because right now they seem like they're such close races, experts are saying that it could be days before we get a final result. So we'll see how much we're really going to learn here tonight and who we hear from up here.
Yeah, and we were speaking with John Huck earlier. He spoke with Joe Gloria. He was saying it could take up to 10 days even to get a final result. And as far as the Lombardo campaign and the Laxalt campaign, anything that you're seeing on Twitter as far as you can what you can tell us as far as their campaigns go?
Yeah, well, they haven't made really any definitive statements at this point, but what they are saying, though, is we're seeing a bit of that red wave when it comes to other parts of the country, and those results coming in, that gives them confidence when it comes to the races here in Nevada. Now, if that'll be true, only time will tell as we see some of the first results come in and out. Now, something else that, of course, has been a chatter and important to both of these races, of course, the weather that we've been talking about all day, and, of course, impacting Southern Nevada, but even more so Northern Nevada, which of course, historically is going to help the Republican Party. So we'll see if that plays any factor in what comes to the end results here. And as you mentioned, it could be over a week or so. But again, right now, everything seems very positive here, but we're still waiting for some of those first results to come in.
And well, we could only expect Sheriff Joe Lombardo to come up and speak later on tonight, Adam Laxalt, and so many of the other GOP candidates. Drew, thank you so much for standing by with us and hanging out with us here on Fox 5 News Digital. We will definitely be checking in with you tonight at 10 and 11. We appreciate your coverage out there. Thank you so much.
All righty, thanks, Cody.
All right, once again, that was our Fox 5 reporter Drew Andre out at Red Rock Resort. That is where the GOP is having their headquarters tonight. And we, of course, want to balance it out. We're going to be speaking with Maddie White. She's at the Democratic headquarters. That is coming up your way coming up next. Excuse me. We'll be right back.
Our interview, or rather speech from Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat in Connecticut. We go out there to Richard Blumenthal.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming and joining us to celebrate tonight. And we will be introducing our candidates and our winning slate as we get them in. And right now, it is a great pleasure.
How do you feel?
I feel energized, excited, and most important, grateful. Nothing surprises me these days about elections, but I'm just grateful that it was decisive. I'm going to have to go up here.
We are so proud of all of the volunteers, all of the party activists, our state party, for the work that you have put into.
No matter how powerful, no matter how influential.
Tonight for Democrats all across Connecticut. And I have a very simple job to do. I don't think any of us are surprised that Dick Blumenthal was declared the winner of this Senate race at 8:01 tonight. I have had the privilege of serving with Dick Blumenthal in the United States Senate
Of the last 10 years. And I know Dick Blumenthal to be exactly who you know him to be, a fighter on behalf of the little guy, someone who is unafraid to families over the past 3 decades than Dick Blumenthal. And I have had the honor of getting to do this job with him. I have had the honor of fighting on behalf of Connecticut alongside him. And I have a simple job here today to say thank you for all that you have done to make this big victory possible, and to introduce to you the current and continuing, the next senator from the state of Connecticut, my great friend Dick Blumenthal.
And I have the simple task of introducing Cynthia Blumenthal, who is responsible for my being here with you today. I have so many thanks to give. First of all, to my great colleague and partner and friend, Chris Murphy, for all of the great work he has done on gun safety, on foreign relations, on health care and education. He has been a leader, and I've been proud to be a partner and colleague of his, and we're going to continue that work together. Thank you to the Democrats of Connecticut. Thank you to every one of the Democrats, especially Nancy DiNardo, our chairwoman. Thanks to the working people and the working party, the Working Family Party of Connecticut, my union brothers and sisters, thank you for the difference you have made fighting for everyday people in Connecticut. My team here, my team in Washington, D.C., you have made me so proud. But let me just say to all of the people who voted for me, and all the people who didn't vote for me, I am going to continue fighting tirelessly, relentlessly against special interests, no matter how big and powerful. All too often, those special interests get their way. My job has been always to stand up for them, and it has never been more important than now because of the rising costs of inflation, because of the efforts on the part of Republicans to decimate Social Security and Medicare, and because so much is at stake, including women's reproductive rights and freedoms, and we are going to restore them. So I'm going to pledge to you that I will fight to protect and preserve Social Security and Medicare, but also lower taxes, cut inflation, and fight for the people of Connecticut, putting them first. I also think we need to bring the country together. We need to make sure that we put Connecticut first, put America first, reach across the aisle where possible, but when the fight comes, I will be there for you, and the fight will be coming. It will be more difficult now than before, but we need to stand together, and I will stand with you to fight for the people.
You're listening to Senator Richard Blumenthal, who wins his re-election there in Connecticut. We will continue to check on races all across the country as it happens. Now let's get back here to Nevada. We want to talk about some important things before we get you to Fox 5 News at 10, which starts here in about 15 minutes. Let's take a look at a rundown of the top stories that we are following this election. Now, the Justice Department is sending monitors to 24 states in an effort to ensure compliance with federal voting rights laws in the election today and in the days to come. The action, which occurs regularly on Election Day, comes as civil rights groups and the federal government has raised the alarm over potential voting intimidation at some polling locations across the country. Clark County and Washoe County are among the 64 jurisdictions throughout the country, and those monitors are essentially lawyers who work for the U.S. government. They are not law enforcement officers or even federal agents. They are generally just lawyers from the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division and U.S. Attorney's Office. Let's go ahead and now talk about Nye County. Over in Nye County, officials are going to not hand count the mail-in ballots by hand before the polls close today. It comes as after leaders there have announced plans to overhaul their election system due to concerns about voter fraud. But the Nevada Supreme Court ruled last month the hand count where results were read out loud, that violated state law because it was being read out loud. Those are people's votes. We had Kim Passoff earlier on the show telling us that those are people's votes being read out loud. So thus the state Supreme Court did strike that down. Now, Nye County tried to save their plan by proposing a silent hand count, but the Secretary of State is rejecting that change. Now, over in Arizona, we can take a look at some video there in Arizona. This is a big thing happening there as far as some of the reasons why the DOJ is heading to 64 jurisdictions across the country. Here's video from Arizona. You can see a federal judge blocked an armed political group in Arizona from patrolling ballot drop boxes over concerns they were intimidating voters. Members of Clean Elections USA are banned from openly carrying guns or wearing armor, I should say, within 250 feet of those mail-in boxes there, of those voting boxes there in Maricopa County. They are also barred from recording voters as they submit their ballots. The ruling comes after progressive groups accused them of behaving aggressively in those areas. Clean Elections USA has previously raised concerns about voter fraud and disputed the results of the 2022 election. One more time there, let's take a look at those voting lines throughout the day today. And you may notice here when you tune in to Fox 5 News at 10 and 11 tonight, you may notice a difference in the way we report the number of votes coming in. In the past, the Associated Press used the number of precincts reporting to show how much of the vote has been counted and how much remains to be tallied. But with the different way people can vote nowadays, including the mail-in voting and early voting as well, the number of precincts reporting may not be as reliable. So that means tonight we will be counting based on the estimated percentage of votes in total. The percentage could fluctuate based on voter turnout, but you will not see it go to 100% until the elections are certified. That is how the Associated Press is reporting this election, and possibly even elections in the future as well. Polls are now closed here in Clark County. We're also getting word they are officially fully closed in Washoe County as well. That's where the two DOJ representatives are going to be standing by watching and overseeing the election ballot counting. We do want to talk about this. Take a look at this on your screen. These are the states in blue. In red and orange, you can see that these are the 35 U.S. Senate races. In blue, those are the ones that are leaning or likely Democrat. In red, those are leaning or likely Republican. And then, of course, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, a couple others there on this map you can see are going to be battleground states. We've been talking about it. We're a toss-up state here in Nevada, Arizona there. You can see on the map, and we have a little bit more on this. Our reporter and anchor, Jacqueline Schultz, she's actually been looking into this throughout the day, so we want to go ahead and take a look and see the balance of power in the Senate, the U.S. Senate, and as well as in the House of Representatives. We'll toss it to Jacqueline.
Power in Congress is in the balance tonight. Taking a look at the seats that the Dems have won so far in the Senate. 7 won by the Democrats, including notably Chuck Schumer keeping his seat. For the Republicans, 15 seats so far, and that includes Marco Rubio of Florida. So the question is, where exactly do some of the swing states go into play? The 4 that are really everyone's looking at. Pennsylvania, John Fetterman is in the lead over Mehmet Oz right now. One of the races that is considered to be flippable. In Georgia, too close to call, 49 and 49%, neck and neck. There's already expected that it could go to another runoff. And in Arizona, Mark Kelly actually potentially has a comfortable lead, but the slimmest margins out of all the Senate races tonight are truly in Nevada between Catherine Cortez Masto and Adam Laxalt. Neck and neck. A lot of political experts say it's too close to determine who might be the winner. So there's a lot of expectation and pins on needles from across the country looking at the Nevada Senate race tonight.
It's very important. Jacqueline, thank you so much for giving us, for taking a look at the insight on the balance of power. She will be back tonight at 10 and 11 in just about 10 minutes now for our special election night coverage here on Fox 5. Take a look at those 2 big races again.
Make sure they get out and vote, because
Steve Sisolak, the incumbent,
doesn't matter.
Here,
you can complain all day.
Sheriff Joe Lombardo.
If you don't vote,
we have had a precipitous drop in the number of cases. It's attributed
Between
to something.
Sheriff
I think
Joe Lombardo and
had a
Steve
significant part
Sisolak,
of that.
the polls
Voting
have
is
been
such a
coming
sacred
in
right that we have in the
neck and
United
neck,
States, and people. I know they
throughout
say it, but
a
people
variety
have
of
died for the
different
right
polls
for
that
us
you
to
look
vote.
at.
Protection of businesses into the future.
Another
And
race
I think
is
there should be some to make sure they get out and vote,
that's another good
because
polling. That's
doesn't
just an
matter.
average of
You can complain
all
all
of the
day.
polls of whether
If
it
you
be
don't
more
vote,
We have
Democratic
had a
leaning, whether
precipitous
it be
drop
more
in the number of
Republican
cases.
leaning, independent.
It's attributed to something. I think
those
masks
polls
had a significant part of that. Was it
5:30
voting is
a
such
good
a sacred
resource
right
to
that we
use when
have
you
in the
wanna take
United
a look
States,
at
and people.
a couple,
I know they say it, but people have died
a bunch
for the
of
right
different
for us to
polls. Let's go ahead now, toss it back to Local News Live. They're actually taking a look now at the balance of power. Let's go ahead, take it to our national coverage.
Holds on to her seat as a Democrat. Let me pull it up here. Here it is, Jen Kiggins. It got close in the end, but she is able to pull off that win, and she flips the 2nd district in Virginia. It went to Joe Biden by about a percentage point in 2020. It was carried by Glenn Youngkin in 2021, their Republican governor, and Jen Kiggins, the Republican, takes that seat. Let's check out a couple races in New York, we highlighted them earlier, that were coming down to the wire and Republicans were leading late. That is the case here. It looks like, my math is right, we got about 8% of the vote left, and Michael Lawler is going to pull off that upset against one of the most powerful Democrats in the House, Sean Patrick Maloney. And Marcus Molinaro, the Republican, looks like he might take a seat away from Josh Riley. So a tough night for Democrats in New York after they had a very positive night in North Carolina. Let's check out one seat here in Michigan. So it looks like it might be a comeback for Lisa Slotkin. So she's an incumbent Democrat. Liz Cheney, a Republican from Wyoming, campaigned with her. And she was down by 15 percentage points. She's made up that ground, down by about 3% with 78% of the vote counted. Let's check out Indiana number 1. This was also a toss-up district. It looks like the Democrat Frank Mervyn has got a somewhat comfortable lead, 5%, with about 19% of the vote left to count. So we have Republicans doing well in Michigan and in New York, the Democrat holding on there in Indiana, as well as, at least for the moment, in Illinois, Eric Sorensen trying to hold on to the seat that Sherry Bustos held. We heard from her at the very top of our broadcast. He's up by about 4% with 85% of the vote counted. We heard from Tony Vargas a little bit ago. He's coming up a bit short to Don Bacon, hanging in there, though. 76% of the vote counted. This is in a seat that benefited Democrats because of redistricting. It leaned Republican before the race. Vargas down by about 4 percentage points to Don Bacon. Let's keep a close eye on this one here. This is Lauren Boebert. She still trails by 3%. 77% is in. Lauren Boebert, one of the most well-known names in the Republican Party for some of her social media pictures with guns and how aggressive she is as a Second Amendment supporter. And she's now trailing by 3%, 77% counted. That is a race to watch overnight. Some of these totals coming in from California. Let me see. This was supposed to be, I think that one's a favored. Here we go. So this was supposed to be one that's going to be a toss-up, and we're seeing it play out. Mike Garcia being pushed by Christy Smith, the Democrat challenger in that race. All right, that is a look at some of the seats we've been following throughout the night. Of course, there's plenty more. We also looked at the governor and Senate race. It looks like Gretchen Whitmer isn't quite up yet. So we'll go ahead and take a quick break, come back and wrap up our coverage here on Local News Live.
Our great friends over at Local News Live giving us some insight on other national races, because it's not just Nevada here. We have several big races throughout the country that we're all looking at. We do want to mention this. Speaking of Nevada, we are starting to get results back, as we were mentioning here closer to 10 o'clock, getting some results. This is on the Clark County election page. You can see that right now, as of right now, here are the results coming in. Those are also at the bottom of the screen. As of right now, we're tracking this 193,000 votes, about 42% to 53%. Sisolak leading there with just the very early vote that we're getting here. Lieutenant Governor Lisa Cano Burkhead, as well as leading 52 to 43 there against her Republican opponent, Anthony Stavros. And then the Secretary of State race as well, Jim Marchant, right here, 41% versus Cisco Aguilar, 55%. These are just the votes coming in. I want to say the mail-in ballots that have been trickling in the early voting ballots as well. That will come first, and then we'll eventually see the rest of those results trickle in. We've mentioned it all night. Could take up to 10 days. We heard it from Joe Gloria, the County of Registrars for the election department here in Clark County. We have had a great night covering this election, and look at that. We did get some results there right at the bottom of the screen. You can check this ticker out here at the bottom of your screen on Fox 5 News at 10 and 11 with John Huck and our team of reporters. We will have team coverage. Thank you so much for joining our special digital coverage of the election in the midterm 2022. It's an important one here in Nevada, as it always is, being a battleground state. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Den. For all of us here at Fox 5, I'm Cody Lee. We'll see you next time. We'll see you back here coming up here in just a couple minutes on Channel 5.